Today, in a New York federal courtroom, Sean Diddy Combs told the judge he was, quote, a little nervous. The rap mogul's criminal trial began this morning. He is sex trafficking, racketeering, and more. The two sides are now in the process of selecting a jury of 12 plus alternates.
Today, in a federal courtroom in New York, music mogul Sean Diddy Combs admitted to the judge that he was a little nervous as his high-stakes criminal trial officially got underway. The charges are serious: sex trafficking, racketeering, and other federal crimes. The courtroom atmosphere is tense as jury selection moves into its third day. So far, nearly
Mr. Depp built a reputation as one of the most talented actors in Hollywood, a respected artist whose name was associated with success at the box office. Today, his name is associated with a lie.
170 potential jurors have been brought in, and close to 50 have already been dismissed. Each person is being asked a series of questions, many focused on how they get their news and whether they can remain unbiased about Diddy's celebrity status. Some admitted they had strong opinions about him. Others weren't sure they could separate the headlines from the facts. Now, the pool has been narrowed to about 35 candidates from diverse backgrounds, people working in healthcare, manufacturing, design, and other fields, with ages ranging from their 30s to their 80s. They rely on everything from newspapers to social media for information, which adds complexity to the challenge of finding a fair and impartial jury in such a high-profile case. Adding even more intensity to the proceedings, the judge has brought in legal heavyweight Ben Chew, the same attorney who represented Johnny Depp in his headline-grabbing death.
I asked you about this upcoming Diddy trial that's coming up in a few days. I think it's coming up in about 4 or 5 days. How you feel about Cassie testifying against Diddy?
Yes, sir. First of all, it should be absolutely illegal for Cassie to testify against Diddy. When he paid her off, I believe there was an NDA involved in that situation. He was paying her off to shut up and go away. After all the money he paid her, after her signing an NDA, how can she then be brought back into court to testify against him? It reminds me of Bill Cosby. Some of those women who lied on Bill Cosby during his sex abuse cases had NDAs. And the court let them break the NDA. You never see this with a white man accused of the same. You never see this with a Caucasian accused of the same. His lawyer should do all that they can to fight against Cassie testifying. She wasn't sex trafficked. So why are you testifying in a sex trafficking case? He is not being charged with crimes against Cassie. He's being charged with crimes against others. Cassie was paid and dismissed. Why is she being brought back into court after taking that man's money and testifying against him? That right there is clearly an excessive and abusive use of the law. Absolutely wrong. I do not like it. As far as Puffy asking for his case to be delayed, I agree with that. Remember, one of his lawyers recused himself. Okay, at least one of them. So he probably has, some new people on his legal team. They got to get reacclimated and get caught up with what's going on. And I saw nothing wrong with him asking for a 2-month delay. He's already in jail. Y'all didn't give him bail, which y'all also think is a violation of his constitutional rights. So he should have got the 8-week delay. But here we go again. Deion Sanders. We want to make an example out of Puff. And of course, Deion wasn't accused of what Puffy is being accused of, but we want to make an example out of Sean Puffy Combs. He was too confident, he was too big, and it was time for us to bring him down.
Amber Heard. Chew's experience with media-saturated trials could be a key factor in navigating the jury selection process. Diddy's legal team is under pressure, especially with the possibility that his former girlfriend, Cassie Ventura, may be called to testify. Although her previous legal claims were settled, prosecutors say she could still play a role in the trial as a witness. At stake is nothing less than Diddy's future. If convicted, the 54-year-old music executive could face life in prison. With the final jury panel still being formed, all eyes are on the courtroom as one of the most
Do you also have a member of the team going through the social media of these jurors, making sure they didn't do anything? I mean, how much research can you do in terms of, did they search for something? Did they say something? I always am curious about that because you come into court the next day and you always hear a prosecutor or defense attorney say, court, we have an issue we would like to bring to your attention. Juror number 5 was looking like, it's like, how did they find that out? Is that what happens?
Well, it is in a high stakes case like this. I mean, as you know, not all clients have the resources to hire, jury consultants and to hire investigators. But in this case, you have a defendant who could theoretically be sentenced to life in prison, who has the means. So I'm sure, or I would think, that his counsel have a team of investigators following the jurors around to the extent they can and looking for any electronic footprint.
Now, I mentioned before how can you believe the jurors? How do you know they're telling the truth? Well, I'll tell you what we've seen so far in the Combs jury selection process, you have what seems to be a lot of honesty, okay? Because you had one prospective juror who told the court that she had been sexually assaulted as a teenager and that if the defense brings up at trial that, look, these alleged victims didn't report what they say happened to them, this juror indicated they would understand why. And they would be biased in the alleged victim's favor. This juror was excluded.
Charges imaginable. AS jury selection continues in the federal trial of Sean Diddy Combs. The gravity of the case is becoming clearer. Diddy faces multiple serious charges, including sex trafficking and racketeering. If convicted, he could spend the rest of his life in prison. Unlike most defendants, Diddy has the resources to hire a full legal team, including investigators and jury consultants, to monitor potential jurors for any biases, both in person and online. Surprisingly, many...
This morning, day 2 of jury selection in the racketeering and sex trafficking trial of Sean Combs, seen in court with graying hair. Federal prosecutors are trying to prove Combs used his power, wealth, and fame to force women into drug-fueled orgies he called freak-offs and then threaten them into silence.
The jury questionnaire warning potential jurors there may be evidence of sexually explicit videos, photographs, and language. Many prospective jurors said they had heard of the case, and this potentially damning evidence, video first obtained by CNN showing Combs knocking then-girlfriend Cassie Ventura to the floor of a Los Angeles hotel in 2016 and kicking and dragging her. It was upsetting to watch, one woman told the judge, but I don't know the full story, so I can listen to the facts.
Many prospective jurors said they recognized the names of other celebrities that might come up at trial.
Several potential jurors knew of Combs' cultural significance. The woman said she remembered him from Making the Band. A man said he liked to listen to hip-hop in the 1990s.
Can't nobody hold me down.
When Combs became a chart-topping artist. To remain in the jury pool, all had to say they could be fair. The judge tried to keep things moving, so when the defense asked for a bathroom break, Combs apologized, saying, "Sorry, Your Honor, I'm a little nervous today."
Transparency throughout the process. One woman revealed that she had been sexually assaulted in the past, adding that she might struggle to remain impartial if defense attorneys suggest the alleged victims in this case are lying because they didn't come forward sooner. She was ultimately dismissed from the pool. This trial is different from celebrity civil cases.
You put Johnny Depp on the stand. It's always a high-risk strategy. It worked for you. If you were representing Sean Diddy Combs, would you put him up?
Well, we put Johnny up because he was telling the truth. So that was a very easy decision to make. And he had the burden of proof. And frankly, we couldn't have stopped him even if we wanted to, but we didn't want to. Telling the truth as he did over several days. You're not telling the truth. Skilled attorneys on the other side are going to puncture that. I believe in that system. I think in this case, I don't think he's got any choice. Given that video, he's got to explain it. He's got to say that he's terribly sorry for it, but that was an aberration. That's not who he is. He simply has to say that.
Many aren't eager to be part of it, perhaps because of the disturbing nature of the allegations and the possibility of being exposed to graphic evidence, including sexually explicit videos and photos. One woman who had seen the widely circulated video of Diddy assaulting Cassie Ventura in 2016 told the judge, it was upsetting to
I think you want somebody who wants to serve, someone eager to serve, because that suggests that person might be inclined toward a celebrity like Diddy. I would also, in this case, I would want men, not because men support abuse, but I could see this being very difficult for women jurors. I would want younger jurors as well. I don't know that older jurors would be good for him.
Do you care where they get their news? Do you care if they go on social media?
I wouldn't care so much about social media. Certainly, watching you on Law and Crime would be a real problem. But no, I wouldn't care too much. I mean, in fact, if they were reading the celebrity media, TMZ, Rolling Stone, that might be an encouraging thing for Diddy's counsel.
Now, Ben, according to the court today, they expect preemptory challenges on Friday. You have a lot of jurors who saw the Cassie tape. You have a lot of jurors who were exposed to this case or something that's been going on with Sean Combs, know who he is, maybe know a list of the celebrities or places that were potentially going to be brought up in this case. Difficulty of sitting 8 weeks on this jury, but they're going to be seeing and hearing a lot. Do you think that it's going to be tough to sit a fair and impartial jury in Sean Combs' criminal case?
Well, I think they will have a fair and impartial jury. I think the problem is going to come in, with the Cassandra Ventura's tape. I mean, whether you've seen that before, you're certainly going to see that during the trial. And I think that's highly problematic, obviously, for Diddy, whether they've seen it before or not.
Yeah, because the prosecution is saying she was not only running away from Combs, she was running away from a freak-off, that there was a sex worker in that hotel room. And that goes to the charge of sex trafficking and also racketeering, because sex trafficking is a part of that as well. Okay, so the trial's about to start. We know that Sean Combs early in the week said to the court, I'm feeling a little nervous today. Let's say openings begin day 1, May 12th, okay? What do you advise your celebrity client to do and not to do as this trial begins and progresses for 8 weeks?
I would remind him to remember that every second he is in the courtroom, at least one juror and probably more are going to be looking at him. So he should act as if he were testifying every second he's in the courtroom.
Wealth and influence to manipulate and intimidate women into participating in drug-fueled events he called freak-offs, and then silence them through threats. The court has warned that the jury may be exposed to explicit content as part of the evidence. Several jurors said they recognized Diddy from his role in early 2000s reality TV or remembered him from his music career in the 1990s. Some admitted they were familiar with other celebrities who could be mentioned during the trial.
Diddy has a very good jury consultant, probably more than one, who is profiling the type of juror who would be most sympathetic to him. And I think it's wise for attorneys, even experienced attorneys, to defer for the most part to those jury consultants. Now, ultimately, it's the client's choice, and the client should be participating in the process, especially where it's here, his liberty is at stake.
And was that something that you had in your case where your client wanted to get involved in the jury selection process? Because it's been reported that Diddy has been almost like nodding to his attorneys or maybe even shaking his head regarding certain prospective jurors. Is that common? Is that what you saw?
I think that is common, and it's natural that you would want to have some role in choosing the people who decide your fate. And it also gives the client, I think, some measure or some feeling of control in a situation where any defendant would have to feel a profound lack of control, because this is not as he's used to controlling his business, his social life. And this is a situation over which he has almost no control. So this is an opportunity for him to have at least a modicum of control.
And these preemptory challenges, each side will get a certain amount of them to strike jurors. It doesn't have to be for cause. It could be for whatever reason they want, but there are limitations. So they can't strike jurors because of race or gender or ethnicity. How on earth is the court supposed to know that? How on earth is the defense or the prosecution's not going to come out and say that's the reason they're excluding a juror?
Diddy appeared in court showing signs of age and stress, with noticeably graying hair. At one point, he apologized to the judge for requesting a break, saying, "Sorry, Your Honor, I'm a little nervous today." Legal expert Ben Chu, best known for defending Johnny Depp, has been brought in to consult on the jury selection process. He noted that while many jurors in high-profile cases are excited to participate, that's not the case here. The charges are severe, and the content could be deeply unsettling, making it harder to find willing jurors. According to Chu, the defense may prefer younger jurors who are less likely to be shocked by graphic testimony or images, and possibly more open-minded. Male jurors may also be favored, not because women can't be fair, but because of the emotional weight tied to the nature of the allegations. The defense might also lean toward individuals who consume celebrity media and pop culture, as they may be more sympathetic to public figures. Behind the scenes, Diddy was reportedly upset.
I seen that too. I seen uncomfortable to my eyes situations for sure. That I don't rock with. You heard me? That's all. I don't rock with it, you know?
And when you would see these celebrities at these parties, they was cool with the environment. They was cool with everything.
Absolutely. Having a ball. Like it was 1999. So I don't know, bro. I'm talking about celebrities. I'm talking about big time celebrities. You dig? I was just young city. I was just chopper. You heard me? But to see like the juggernauts, the big dogs, you dig? The people we grew up watching, it was kind of exciting too. It was weird, exciting, and because you can't believe that you're here. They are accepting you. But I don't really think they was accepting it. They just was fucking having fun. They didn't give a who was there. And it was kind of like a situation towards, what you see in here don't go outside. It was kind of like that, if that makes sense. Whatever happens in here stays in here, because everybody got something to lose in here. So it was kind of like that too. So I guess that made people be okay and willingly able to do whatever they wanted to do in there. You heard me? Because they knew that at the end of the day, it wasn't going to come back out up there. That's why people were so eager and fun to do what they wanted to do in there. Just my opinion. Because everybody has something to lose.
Case and the damning Cassie video. The outcome of this jury selection process could play a critical role in how the trial unfolds. As jury selection nears its conclusion.
Have you ever kicked it with Diddy in Miami?
Yes. I kicked it with Diddy on Star Island for sure. One time I kicked it with Diddy, and this one, you heard me, they was trying to bring me back on Bad Boy. He brought me to Star Island, and he let me see the house, and I'm walking through the house, and he went from showing me the house to me it's so paused. The house was so big, like I just started walking around myself. I was amazed. When I'm walking, you heard me, I walk into this room. You heard me, I walk into this room, and I've seen all types of, what'd you call it? Dominatrix looking dildos and sex toys and all types of weird shit. That was in my head. Like, to be honest with you, at this time, I was green ass. So I wasn't thinking it was like Diddy's room. I thought it was more like Diddy be like bringing girls over and just doing all types of crazy shit. But knowing what I know now, that nigga's a fucking freak. Yeah, so yeah, I've been to his house in Star and I seen dildos, sex toys, and all types of weird shit in there. Definitely. But I wasn't supposed to just be wandering around there anyway. So I'm not gonna blame that on Diddy. I'm gonna blame it on myself, you heard me? Cause I ain't belong just exploring around there, you dig? So what you see if you're, not invited to walk in the place where ain't nobody asked you to walk into. But I definitely seen sex toys and all types of whips and dominatrix and baby Earl and all that type of shit. Definitely. 100%. Definitely. That plagued my mind a little bit.
But legal experts believe it is possible. One major hurdle is the now public security video from 2016, which shows
one of the producers over there at MTV at the time, who was super cool guy. He actually had the camera walking with us, you heard me, to Brooklyn to get the cheesecake. The first Art Dialogue interview, you heard me, that I did, he DM'd me and I definitely talked to him. He was like, yeah, bruh, how you been, Chop? I'm like, I'm straight, bruh. Appreciate you hitting me. Long time. He like, yeah, bruh. I appreciate your interview, you heard me, that you did on Art of Dialogue. I said, thank you, I appreciate you, bruh. And he was like, you ever notice why I was shooting with y'all and then all of a sudden you haven't seen me after that? And I'm like, yeah, I do. I said, why is that? He said, because one time Diddy invited me to his office and told me to suck his dick. And he was like, he said, I damn near wanted to kill him, bro. He was like, I left the office and I quit. And so it don't, with the curse situation, you know, it don't sound far-fetched from what I've heard. You dig? I haven't ever encountered that type of situation with Diddy. Thank you, universe, because I would be in jail right now, facing life or doing life. But I haven't encountered that type of Diddy, you dig? But I don't know, bro. If it walk like a duck and talk like a duck, obviously, it might be a duck. It might be true, bro. That is considered sexual harassment, Sarah. I think that's considered sexual harassment, not what Sarah tried to do. You dig? So with the Kirk situation, I don't know. It just don't sound far-fetched, and that's all I'm gonna say about it. I haven't experienced that with Diddy, so I can't, I can't be like the people that exaggerate and say things that's not true. All I can say is 100 things from my experience. And my results for that answer is it don't sound far-fetched.
He was escaping one of Combs' infamous freak-offs, drug-fueled parties allegedly involving coercion, sex workers, and abuse. That footage will likely be shown again in court, and its impact could be devastating to the defense, regardless of whether...
They also say they found recordings of freak-offs, and the evidence was then used to blackmail these women if they didn't cooperate more.
Diddy's longtime ex-girlfriend, Cassandra Cassie Ventura, filing a lawsuit against him last year that changed everything.
He would direct her how to touch the sex worker, how to pour oil over her body, and he would watch these things happen while he was masturbating.
Cassie Ventura's lawsuit gave the blueprint for the Southern District of New York to investigate Sean Combs, and the lawsuits that followed gave the brick and mortar to build the case against him.
One shocking freak-off the prosecutors allege the Diddy indictment occurring around this incident involving Cassie.
The new video obtained exclusively by CNN.
Prosecutors said there was a male prostitute still in their hotel room. That, prosecutors say, shows that Cassie was trying to get out, and prosecutors in court quoted messages from Cassie talking about the bruises, the fat lip that she was left with.
Initially, Diddy denied all wrongdoing, but after the surveillance video surfaced, he spoke out on his social media.
My behavior on that video is inexcusable. I take full responsibility for my actions in that video.
Diddy's defense team giving a preview of their version of what was happening behind the scenes.
The defense has tried to recast, not as evidence of sex trafficking, but as the simple breakdown of a 10-year loving relationship. And the judge interrupted and said, what's love got to do with that, with kicking someone?
Cassie's lawsuit would be just the beginning of Diddy's downfall. It was settled in 24 hours. But at least 11 others have since come forward, too, with their own civil lawsuits. Diddy denies the allegations in these lawsuits.
Behavior will become critical. Legal experts emphasize that Combs must remember he's under scrutiny at all times. Jurors will watch his every move, and how he carries himself could influence their perception. It's not just about what's said from the witness stand. It's about demeanor, emotion, and consistency. Friday marks the beginning of the preemptory challenge phase of jury selection. Both sides will be able to dismiss jurors without stating a reason.
Well, yeah, he's fighting it. And I mean, he made a post saying that I will fight these allegations. They're all lies and so forth. But then the Cassie hotel video comes out.
Deplorable.
Now, I've dealt with abusive women in my day.
Me too.
You know, so you can relate to this.
Right.
When a woman attacks you, you try to
do like, you know what I'm
you
saying?
try to
gotta do
restrain
your-
her or you try to block from getting hit. But there is a line that you don't cross, at least in my life, that you don't become the aggressor. Because at that point, no matter what leads up to it, you're going to be the villain.
Right.
And in this particular case, you saw your man, Puffy, beat her like a man in a hallway. Now, I don't know what happened before, but it kind of doesn't matter.
It don't matter what happened before.
It doesn't matter.
You gotta know how to control yourself and all that.
Now, you talked about this. You said that Diddy was on a lot of drugs when this happened.
Yeah.
And, you said Roger Bonds, you said that, he's not always truthful, but the one thing that he would say was that around this era, Diddy and Cassie would have these binges, these 3-day, 4-day binges in hotel rooms. They would take a lot of drugs and take IVs afterwards. And Puffy was going into rehab during this time and so forth.
I didn't know that.
You didn't know that?
I wasn't around
Okay.
at that time.
Okay. Well, but she did say he was on a lot of drugs during that time.
I kind of figured that based off just him having conversations with me about the whole scenario of what went down.
Or ethnicity. If the judge suspects discriminatory intent, they can intervene. Some issues have already surfaced. One juror was removed after disclosing a job at HBO, which recently released a documentary about Combs. Another, who works for the Legal Aid Society, was allowed to remain after the judge ruled their responses were fair. Attorney Ben Chu, known for representing Johnny Depp, noted the importance of expert jury consultants in cases like this. He believes Diddy's legal team is wisely relying on consultants to help identify
major developments tonight involving the case against Sean Diddy Combs, what he decided in court today, and what this now means, the move coming just 4 days before his trial is set to begin. Here's Aaron Katursky.
Tonight, Sean Combs makes it official. He's rejecting the government's offer to plead guilty and spare himself the possibility of a prolonged term in prison. When asked if he turned down the offer, Combs answered, "Yes, I do, Your Honor," as he stood in a baggy beige jail uniform. Terms were not disclosed, but prosecutors did say a plea could result in a shorter sentence for Combs than if he's convicted. The decision guarantees Combs will face trial beginning just 4 days from now that will test whether one of music's most prolific figures used his power, wealth, and fame to sexually exploit both women and men for decades. Combs has pleaded not guilty to racketeering conspiracy, sex trafficking, and transportation to engage in prostitution charges that accused him of coercing alleged victims into prolonged drug-fueled sexual activity that he called freak-offs and threatening them into silence.
The last hearing before Sean Combs' trial starts, when he walked into federal court today, he appeared to be looking for his family. They've pretty much been at all of the hearings that I've been to, but there was no presence of his sons or his mother or his sister who had previously been at those hearings. So here's what came out of today's hearing. Number one, the government acknowledged that they offered Combs a plea deal. Combs acknowledged he has no interest in taking that. They're going to move forward with the trial. They also talked about the jury selection process, which one legal expert I spoke to said is probably the most important thing that you want to pay close attention to before the actual trial starts. And thirdly, we learned that Combs will be adding 2 new attorneys to his defense team. And just to recap, Combs, who is 55 years old, could spend the rest of his life behind bars if convicted on sex trafficking and racketeering. He has pleaded not guilty to all charges.
And reports suggest he's taking an active role, nodding or shaking his head in response to certain jurors. Legal professionals say this is not unusual. For a defendant who's used to being in control, it's one of the few ways to feel involved in a process where everything else is out of their hands. Because of the case's high profile and the severity of the charges, the jury will remain anonymous. Their identities will be kept confidential to protect them from outside influence, threats, or harassment. This underscores the seriousness of the situation and the level of concern surrounding potential pressure on the panel. Prosecutors are